Okay, so welcome to the Sydney Supersonics. Just wanted to jump on here, do a little bit of an audio, and really just kind of talk about what we're doing and what this platform's all about. Kind of giving a bit of an intro and some of the prior editions of this. If you aren't aware why the sound quality is so awful, it's because I'm currently driving in my car in the Lane Cove Tunnel, just down the road from Supersonics HQ, Blackman Park. But the reason that I'm doing that, and the reason that we've decided to just really go for it, is because this idea and philosophy behind what I'm doing right now, and just kind of taking all the time that I have available to make stuff happen, is because that is the philosophy that we embody with the Sydney Supersonics, and that we want to get through to all of our players and really teach all of our players and everyone that's involved with our club, is that there are no excuses. There's no excuse for you not achieving what it is that you want to achieve, and taking action every single day to sort of self-actualize, to use a technical term. For those that aren't aware, I'm a coach by trade. I'm an exercise scientist, pseudo-psychologist. I've done a lot of reading and done some psychology subjects at university, and really initially wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach for the Los Angeles Lakers. So I did all of the required study and reading to kind of get there, and then along my journey of internships at some of the most high-level sporting institutions in our country, such as NSWIS and at the University of Sydney, I kind of realised that it wasn't quite for me, and sort of pivoted a little bit into private practice. And in private practice, I realised there are very similar issues just with general populations, and the principles were the same. But if you hear me using technical scientific terms, that's kind of why. And I think introducing people to those terms is a very beneficial thing. So that idea of kind of self-actualization is really what Sydney Supersonics is all about. And to be honest, I think that's what basketball should be about. Basketball is really about allowing people who play it to become the best versions of themselves. And then, as I've talked about in some of our prior editions of this, by going through basketball and doing something that you really enjoy, and embracing that spirit of play and embracing the flow state, we can take those lessons through to anything. And so that is where I wanted to start here today, to introduce what it is that we're doing and the Sydney Supersonics, and how we can use this platform to benefit us. And this is going to be led by you guys. I'm just kind of making this because it's something that I would have really loved to have as a player. So if you're a member of the Sydney Supersonics, you're going to get access to sort of at least weekly editions of this. And it's sort of like a elite mindset dump of all of the things that are going around in the heads of us as the founders and players in the elite team of the Sydney Supersonics, who all have our own varying sets of experience into elite performance and really understanding what it takes to be sort of an elite athlete, and just general personal development between us all. We've all achieved some fairly impressive things without sort of tooting our own horn, but we really feel like we're in a position to help those who we're working with, which is people just like we were when we were their age. And we're not saying that this isn't for someone who might be older than us. The oldest of us is 28, but we really want to, if we were 13 again and we were encountering the Sydney Supersonics, what would we want to know as coaches, and as players, and as young men and women, to be fair. And so with that said, I want this to be led by you guys. Please ask us questions. We're going to make this as interactive as possible, and via the platform that it's going to be housed on, it might not be super interactive to start with, but what we aim to do is get it in a way that you can ask all of your questions, and then we'll just work through them every single week and make sure they're being answered, and make sure we give you a shout out, and we kind of feature you, and we really help you to achieve your goals and your desires as a player through what we're doing with the Sydney Supersonics. Because as I talked about, the vision and the mission, and what we want to see with the Sydney Supersonics is this connected landscape of Sydney, where you can go out and get an awesome game of street ball wherever you go, and through that you can connect with others, you can meet awesome people, you can travel, and you can really enjoy what basketball should be all about, instead of the kind of, excuse my French, but the crap that comes with a lot of 5-on-5 where, you know, you have to go through the politics and sitting on the bench and being coached and it's indoors, and I mean there's a list of things that are frustrating, and you know, for some of us it's great, you know, we fit in that system perfectly, but then for a lot of people they don't, and so we want to provide that alternative and really a development pathway for some kids who, you know, still want to play 5-on-5 but want to be able to, you know, get something to benefit their skills outside of 5-on-5, and essentially 3-on-3 it's really just a drill that was designed to develop certain aspects of the 5-on-5 game, and it turned into its own game in and of itself because people realised that, hey, this is really fun and you can play it anywhere. But I guess to go back to the reason why I'm really doing this, and to sort of wrap it up and keep it nice and concise, and to introduce the whole platform, like, this is going to be a fully fledged athletic development platform, and to start with, like, all the content is kind of up in our heads as coaches, and if it's not in our heads, then it's in the heads of the experts that we have within our networks. And so what I want to use this episode to do is to really introduce the idea to everyone and say that, look, if there is a question that you have, please ask it, because we want to work with the questions that you have now, the things that you're struggling with the most and the problems that you have right now, instead of just answering every single possible question that we could, that we already know sort of the answer to, or that we could find the answer to, because that would take forever. Whereas if we answer your questions now and you interact with us, then we can address the things that you need right now, and slowly over time we'll build that resource up. And you know, that is how we're going to go about creating kind of this, I guess the word or the phrase that I'm using, and we'll come up with a better title for it, but it's sort of like the ultimate athletic development package. It's, in my eyes, as an exercise and sports scientist and as a strength and conditioning coach, I've kind of been studying for the last 10 years what it takes to kind of optimize human performance and optimize the human body in terms of, I mean, not just athletic performance, but across the board. And there are a series of things that can be done, and, you know, basic physiological principles that underlie that. And so I want to be able to provide every single person that interacts with the Sydney Supersonics that whole framework of all the things I understand. I want to be able to answer the questions that they have about, you know, what should I do at this stage? Like, say, for example, like, I'm 13 years old, I kind of am really interested in basketball, but I also play AFL. Should I start lifting weights now? How many times a week should I be training? You know, how often should I be playing basketball? How much should I be playing versus training? All that kind of stuff. Those specific questions that we just don't know the answer to when we're 13. Like, I remember when I was 13, I had all of those questions. And the answer is actually, like, it's quite simple. And as a general rule of thumb, it's kind of like, you know, the more fun that you're having and the more specific you are, the better you're going to be. But I don't want to give a generalized answer there, because there's also an element of, when you're 13, you want to develop across a broad range of skills. And so, kind of without getting into the nitty-gritty of a very specific situation like that, I'd rather actually answer the question for a real person. And so this is not just my expertise and my experience within this as well, even though, you know, I've definitely done my 10,000 hours into the understanding of human development and athletic performance, but it's also the knowledge of all the coaches we have within our ecosystem. Between all of us as the owners of the Sydney Supersonics, we have over, I'd say at least over 30 years of collective coaching experience. And within our networks, we have at an arm's length contacts to the best 3-on-3 player in the world, contacts to guys who have played professionally for their whole life, contacts to some of the best high-performing minds in business through our kind of business networks and everything like that. So if there is a question, no matter how left of field, if it is, if you want to talk about yoga, you want to talk about mindfulness, you want to talk about mindset, you want to talk about how to surf better, whatever, those questions can be answered, and we have those experts at an arm's length, but we can't answer the questions that you have if you don't ask us them. And that is the resource that we want to create. And then the more questions that we answer, the more comprehensive of a resource it becomes, and the more useful it becomes, and then the more people we can ask. And it kind of just becomes a bit of a snowball like that. And so, to sort of wrap things up, and to talk about, you know, the ethos of the Sydney Supersonics and what it is that we're doing, I really want to just bring the message home and hammer it home that, it's really about no excuses. It's about making things happen. It's about, kind of training and making the most of what we have in the situation that we have. And this example, I'm living that value right now. This example couldn't be more true. I'm driving in my car on the way to a training session, and I'm making this recording because I know that it will benefit a lot of people to make this recording. And I will be able to help a lot of people by doing this, provided they are able to interact with it and they're able to reach it at the right time. And so that is the ethos that we embody with the Sydney Supersonics. And since I started applying that to my own life, because it took a lot of reading and books and understanding to realize that, look, it's a cliche, no excuses, just do the work, all that kind of stuff. If you're a basketball player, you'll hear that countless amount of times from sort of Kobe Bryant, from Michael Jordan, from Michael Jordan's trainer, Tim Grover. I'm actually reading his book right now, Relentless, and that's another thing we're going to do. We're going to build a bit of a book club, because, guys, if you aren't into reading, and I don't read, when I say I read a book, I actually listen to it on audio at double to triple speed. It's way less crazy than it sounds, trust me, but when you do that, and when I listen to that on the way to trainings and like kind of when I'm walking or just when I have downtime. But when you start doing that, your world kind of opens up. Like, a book is access to, basically someone's life work in a distilled format. And if you haven't done much writing, the kind of the philosophy behind writing, I'm actually a professional copywriter in part of my role at the moment. But when you do a lot of writing, you understand that by writing, you have to think clearly and you have to clarify your thoughts. If you've ever kind of had this jumbled mess of thoughts going on, chances are, if you sit down to write out what you're thinking, you will much more clearly be able to make sense of all of the thoughts that are going on in your head. And so essentially, that is what you get within a book. And if you listen to any professional author, they'll tell you that writing a complete book takes at least a year. A whole year of work, whole year of thinking, whole year of distilling, whole year of making the information as useful as possible. Whereas a podcast, for example, like this, takes me, it took me let's say it took me 15 years to come across all this information, because I really started reading about human performance when I was 10. So it's taken me 15 years to be able to provide this information, yet in the amount of time it took me to actually sort of create it and distill it, it's a 15-minute audio. And so the reason I say that is because, a book is much more refined, much more condensed. And I'm not saying this isn't well thought out, but I'm saying that a book kind of really packs it in so that the message hammers home. And I guess that was a little tangent. Sorry about that, guys. But we're going to have that as a book club as part of this whole offering, because books are the thing that will allow you to reach the highest level. I'm not going to change your life through one audio and through one little podcast, but I am going to help you be able to change your life by allowing you to connect with the process of continuing to develop and understanding how to learn. It's like that old saying, you give a man a fish, he eats for a night. You teach a man to fish, and he eats for the rest of his life. And apologies for my gender-specific terms there, but that it couldn't be more true with what we're trying to do with this whole ecosystem of the Sydney Supersonics. I think too much basketball in Australia simply just provides the fish to eat once, but it doesn't teach us how to train effectively and play effectively to develop. And there's a bunch of specific content on that we're going to touch on. As for the importance of playing as opposed to just training, if you watch the USA best players, a lot of them grew up on the streets playing street ball. Derrick Rose, for example. That's why his game is so flashy. Whereas we don't get many players like that in Australia. A lot of our best players in Australia go through the Institute of Sport and get heavily drilled, and they don't have the same creative flair and creativity. And there's a lot of specific research and science on this, which we'll touch on in a later episode. If you'd like to hear about that one, please let us know. But I guess a big challenge with this kind of stuff is actually knowing sort of what questions to ask. And so I'll definitely give prompts in the episodes for topics and questions and everything like that, but please add more thoughts and everything like that. So to kind of wrap up, like really, this podcast is the perfect example of what Sydney Supersonics is about. In my own training, as COVID happened, as we all experienced, we were kind of all forced indoors and forced outside of our typical basketball venues, and what it meant was that we had to find creative ways to train. And in the past, I simply just said, look, I don't have access to a court, so I'm not going to train. Even though there was an outdoor court that was perfectly good behind my house my whole life, and I never went there, and I sucked because of it. I was awful. Couldn't shoot, couldn't dribble, and I'm getting better. But when I was younger, like I just had all of these excuses in my head. And what we want to go through with the Sydney Supersonics is, look, no more excuses. You might not feel like you have time to train, but just do 5 minutes, do 10 minutes. I don't feel like I have time to do a podcast, but I can do 15 minutes in the car on the way to training, absolutely, because I know the impact that it's going to have. And so, really, that is what all of this is about. And we're going to teach you sort of, no matter what your circumstance is, no matter where you're at, if you didn't make the state team or you didn't make the local rep team or whatever, there's no reason to give up on your dreams of basketball, and no reason to stop kind of playing to become the best player that you can be. And really, that's what all of this is about. I want this to kind of be a resource that you can listen to on the way to games, that you can quickly check in with on the way home from things, or maybe you can check in with sort of at the start of the day to get your mindset right. And we're going to continuously put these messages up so that it all kind of really helps you to develop into the mindset that you need. And I mean, I guess you can think of it sort of like getting 100 books summarized in a way that is as easy as possible for you to digest right now, and the wisdom of some of the smartest minds in the world distilled into an answer that directly answers your specific questions. And those, I'm not stopping my reading, so I'm still reading on average a book every 2 weeks, and so all that information and insight is going into these questions that I'm answering. And the same with all of our other coaches, and the same with the experts that we're going to get on board. So hope that gives you a bit of context, guys. Very, very excited for our upcoming launch for the Sydney Supersonics. Chances are, if you're hearing this, you've probably played in our latest tournament, which was on the 28th of March. And you've got access to our online platform. You've seen this. I'm probably going to house this on YouTube to start with until we find a better platform. You've sort of seen our content. You're keen to get involved more, and you're probably not too sure what 3-on-3 basketball is all about. And so this is my favourite way to consume content, through podcast, and so I'm going to keep doing it and see how you guys like it. But yeah, we're really, really excited to have you as part of the Sydney Supersonics, and we want to work with you guys, so please ask all of your questions. We're going to turn you into elite basketball players, get you to the NBA, get you to overseas so you can play in the world tour, so you can be sourcing guys, crossing guys up, shooting threes, all that kind of stuff. That's what we're here for. And so really, really excited for what's ahead for Sydney Supersonics. Hope you enjoyed the tournament on the 28th, and perhaps I did get to meet you. If I didn't, hit me up, on social media, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Very keen to have a chat and continue working with all of you guys, and let's see what we can make happen. I want you guys to play in our tournaments and interact with kind of the coaching that we've got, and really just get around the 3-on-3 game, whether you want to be in the NBA or you simply just want to play for fun. 3-on-3 kind of has it all when it comes to that, and we're keen to show you why that is the case. So apologies for the blinker just going off there, but absolute pleasure to talk to you guys, and I'm sure we will see you soon. Thank you very much, and keep playing as always.